Ladies and gentlemen, the questions you've all been asking are now being answered. Welcome to another edition of It's All About Who You Know, the podcast where influential people talk big topics in sports, faith, and more. Your host is a former Oregon State wrestler. He has a 4.9 star Uber rating and is currently undefeated in his MMA career. Here is Christian Robertson.
Cool. Jacob, what's up, buddy?
What's happening?
You good? You adjusted? Situated?
All right, here we go.
All right. So one thing I've been doing with my guests
Uh-huh.
is because I not just got on Spotify, but I have like a Spotify account now, and that's how I post.
Okay.
Before I had a different one, but Spotify lets you put polls and like Q&As.
Okay.
So you being a drone guy,
Uh-huh.
and this is not a political thing, so don't be just because I frame the question the way I do.
Uh-huh.
But so what I'm doing is Q&As. And so I figured it's kind of like icebreakers at Bible study.
There we go.
So my Q&A today is for the listeners, and you can answer this question too. Do you think that DJI and or TikTok are either A, stealing Americans' information or putting out narratives? So I guess stealing information, DJI, and then TikTok, like pushing a narrative. That's the Q&A. You don't have to answer. It gets political real quick. I could see how you would not want to toe that line.
I mean, the thing is, like, there's so much data that they're able to get.
Right.
But even with the drones, though, even with DJI, it's like, what are they going to take off my drone? A bunch of, like, today I did a bunch of solar jobs.
Yeah.
A bunch of homes with solar on the top.
Right.
They're pulling those photos. Wow, they've got
might.
some crazy, amazing
They might.
footage.
Well, you think about it, like they sell it to all the, I'm going to get conspiracy real quick. All right. So they sell it to all the people.
Anti-DJI, or are you?
I'm not anti-DJ. It's just a little suspicious to me that it's the only brand that is somehow like working. I am anti-TikTok though. Michelle is like, we can get TikTok and your podcast to do. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I won't do it. I read the terms and service and I wasn't going to do it again. But let's get conspiracy theory. What if they're selling to everyone so that way the important people get it too? It's like they produce the only, they put all their best technology into it, whereas the military is putting their best technology into our own stuff, right? So you think about like the SWAT teams, the SEAL teams, like all these, high level teams have the best equipment. And if I go too far with this, you just let me know. We'll steer into whatever your wife was talking about, dating or whatever. But what if China wants to infiltrate the United States? So they put their best stuff out to the public to just get a wide array of everything.
There you go. We'll see what the poll says.
you're like, there you go. Let's change the topic quick. So Jacob, you own an online business, correct?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know who you are,
Mhm.
why don't you take a few minutes to just explain, give maybe like a mini testimony of your story and then how you got into the drone business.
Yeah. So high school kind of grew up in Lake Tahoe, California. So mountains, water, super amazing. Outdoor adventures all the time.
Okay.
And really, I mean, I was always like kind of entrepreneurial in my life. I started my own business when I was 8 years old. Just selling glow in the dark necklaces on the beach. And so through that, I was like, I don't know what I want to do for college. I definitely don't want to just go and get like an undergrad degree in something stupid. So ended up through high school, found that you could actually go to flight school, pursue a flight degree. So I went to the University of North Dakota, was going to be a commercial pilot, spent 4 years in the cockpit, basically. Loved aviation, loved my aerobatics class, like rolling planes, looping planes. And that's when I realized that actually being a commercial pilot wasn't for me.
Okay.
Because you're not supposed to do anything like that. You're supposed to just go straight and level and land the plane super soft. And it just wasn't interesting to me. It was like, okay, I love flying. I love the whole thing around it, the industry, but I just don't want to be up there, like just going from city to city. So graduated, ended up meeting my wife. And then 2016, the FAA came out with the remote pilot certificate, the drone license. And my father-in-law actually said, hey, because he was a private pilot, and he was like, I just got my drone license. You should think about doing it since you're in aviation. And so I got mine and then started just researching what were potential opportunities for starting a business with drone tech. And it was pretty new back then. I mean, it's still new today. I think in the next 5 or 10 years, drones are going to be like all over the place.
Right.
And so I just saw a lot of opportunity and kind of just started. I was working full time. Me and my wife had just gotten married, and I was like, well, let me just start this business on the side and like see what happens. And kind of the rest is history. So I'm still in the process of building it, but yeah, it's been a ton of fun.
Now, did you ever think about like military or anything, or was it just aviation? When did you find out that you did not want to fly planes?
So, well, as far as the going military, the only upside to that was like they would pay for your flight school.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be like committed for 4 years in like the military after.
Well,
I want to have my own schedule.
Well, as a pilot, it's more. So pilot,
Yeah,
because the flight school takes like 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then you have to give another 4 or 5 on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think the pilot for military is the longest commitment that you have to give because of how long it takes to learn their equipment.
Well, and just the money that they invest in you.
Right.
Because it just takes, I mean, if you're flying those kinds of planes, like it's a pretty big bill.
It's probably what, 5-6 times as much as like a normal pilot's license would be.
Yeah, I mean, if you were gonna pay for like F-18 flying lessons,
right. You probably can't do that too often.
I wish I would if I could.
Talk to Tom Cruise.
Yeah, but basically like halfway through flight school, I'd always like been a Christian, and then halfway through, I got really involved in a really cool community called Chi Alpha on campus.
Okay,
and met some really really good friends.
Now, Chi Alpha, so that's kind of not kind of those are like that's the ministry for like Greek life.
Yeah, so technically they're branded under that, but
Okay.
it's a co-ed thing.
Okay.
But it's basically just like a Christian ministry on campus.
Okay.
So if you've ever heard of Crew,
is it a branch of Crew?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just similar to that.
Okay, gotcha.
They were kind of like our competition, but
oh, gotcha. Well, I did a lot of stuff with Athletes in Action, which is
yeah,
a branch of Crew.
Okay.
Campus Crusade, if anybody's listening that doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Chi Alpha, is that did you ever do you remember an organization called One Way?
No.
Okay. A similar kind of deal. I guess it's just like, how do they brand it? Do they brand it as it's for Greek life, or it's for everybody, but they kind of started out with Greek life and then they just named it that way?
I think it was just like you're like on campus, so most of the stuff is kind of branded as like Greek life, but it was, you got the Christian ministry. They didn't really, none of them have like a specific tie to any church.
Yeah,
they're just all kind of on their own. But yeah, so I got involved there. And
when was this? You said your junior year or sophomore year?
So it was like my sophomore year.
Okay.
And kind of really just like fell in love with the community, fell in love with God again. And like about halfway through my like second year, I just felt like God was saying like, maybe this isn't like the best route for you.
Okay.
Just with like flying and stuff, because it's like, it's very, very specific. Like the rest of your life is kind of planned out. So it's like you go to flight school, spend 4 years in the cockpit,
right?
Become a flight instructor, spend 3 or 4 years flight instructing, go to a regional, spend 2 or 3 years, 5 years there, and then hopefully get, left seat, like captain, or then you go off to like a bigger, instead of the regionals, like a major airline, and then you spend 30 years there and then retire. And it's like everything's mapped out for you. You just have to kind of like jump from one to the next. And I just didn't really like that. I didn't think that was like what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so I ended up changing my degree from commercial aviation to aviation management, which was a business degree, business admin degree. And so I started getting involved in like business classes and stuff.
Okay.
And liked that side. Obviously still like the flight stuff. I was still planning on being a commercial pilot, but it was like, man, maybe my entire career won't be in the cockpit. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll be a manager, I'll be like working in the office and not flying all the time.
Gotcha.
And so I still finished the program, but I was like, I don't know. Like I think I want to do something else. And then my senior year, I decided they offered me the job to be a flight instructor. And I just, something inside me said, don't do it.
Mm.
And so I ended up meeting my wife. And now I know, I mean, we wouldn't work if I was like a commercial pilot.
Yeah.
Being home like most nights is something that I definitely enjoy, but
Right.
also like our relationship really thrives on that. And some people can make it work, but it is really hard.
It's crazy. I was actually talking to my best man about this right before I got married, because he's in the military. Him and his
Okay.
girlfriend are both in the military, and it works, and they're fine with that. And I'm a MMA fighter. Michelle would not be able to handle me being in the military because of how much I'd be away, and his girl would not be able to handle him being an MMA fighter because of how hard it would be to watch. And so it's like about values, and
Yeah.
and who you marry definitely determines like career, because you can't just be like, okay, I want to be a trucker tomorrow, and your wife's like, well,
Yeah.
no, my love language is quality time. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's too bad. I got to put food on the table. It's like,
Quality time, baby.
you got to figure
You're
out another
staying
way.
home.
You got to figure out another way to make a living. You know, it's one of those things. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I love flying still. Like, I loved aviation. And that's what, like, the drone side was really cool. It's like, man, I could potentially start developing some contracts in construction, in like real estate, in these different industries, and build out like a book of business with clients that are, wanting my services.
Right.
And I don't know, my whole life I was kind of just looking for the opportunity to make a business behind.
Okay.
And it's like, man, if the product's good enough, then I want to build a business around it.
Gotcha.
And I never really found that until I got into drones, and that was like, I was more passionate about that too. And it's like, okay, well, I have a step up above everyone else who, got a drone at Best Buy last week, maybe got their license. It's like, I spent 4 years, in flight school, in so many aerodynamics classes, learning
Right.
about all this stuff that a lot of it does translate over.
Okay.
And so it's like, I could use that to my strength, like my experience in that,
Gotcha.
and kind of like jumpstart my career and stuff.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Do you find a lot of value in, your actual, like what you were doing, like with the flight? What do you call it? Certification, or is it a degree, or what do you say for like somebody that's a pilot registered?
License.
Okay. You're licensed. So your
Yeah.
flight license
Mhm.
or pilot's
The
license.
pilot's license.
So do you find a lot of value in what you do now with that, or do you think it's like overkill?
Well, I mean, it is. So like a lot of it can be overkill because like you need to know so much more to fly
A
like a
plane?
multi-engine like aircraft.
Really? Well,
Than,
not
like,
now.
fly a
They
drone.
just said that, what is it? Diversity is the number one recruiting that they're doing now.
No, I
Did
don't
you hear
know.
about that?
No.
Oh, okay. I think it was United came out and they said it was funny. Rob Schneider, who's actually playing tonight, had a joke about it. Michelle and I were dying.
Oh,
We
really?
wanted to go see him. He's right across. I don't know what time he starts. Maybe we could get some cheap tickets or something
Yeah.
after the podcast. But he had a joke, and I guess it is real, but it was either Southwest or United came out and said, moving forward, our number one recruiting factor for how we hire is going to be diversity. And he goes, really? Like, not whether or not people can fly planes?
So that's not the main focus.
He's like, we're so sick of these white pilots getting us to the ground safely. Let's change it up.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. Again, not being political, just making what? Oh, my thing's not working. But so you said it is a little bit now. It is a little bit overkill.
Well, so parts of it are, but then like when you look at airspace, that just kind of builds on it. Like I deal with airspace all the time. It's just in a different way.
Okay.
And like I was flying at Caesar's Palace like a couple weeks ago.
For that wedding, right?
Yeah, and they were like, "We're shutting you down. Like, we don't want you to fly here."
Oh no.
Yeah, and
What ended up happening with that?
well, I showed up and I met up with like the video crew because it was like a crew of 5 or 6 other people
Okay.
and me. I was the drone op, and the client or the manager at Caesars was like, no, this is a no-go. We can't have you flying drones here.
What?
And so I was like, okay, well, I wish I didn't know that we had any problems. It sounded like we got all of our stuff ready to go. You had all the information you needed and already signed off on it. But just so you know, I've talked with the FAA. I've gotten approval to fly in this airspace. I'm certified. Like, I've had my license for 6 years. I've been flying commercially,
Yeah.
and this drone's registered. Like, these are all the boxes you need to check to be like professional and to do it like legally. And obviously this is a no-fly zone. So that's why I got airspace approval. We're good for these 3 hours. Like, I've locked it in and everything.
You had all your bases checked.
Yeah. And I was like, but if you guys have a problem and it's your policy, totally understand. But like, just letting you know, this is what we all did to like prepare.
Mhm.
And then she ended up talking to her manager, and they were like, oh, all right, you're good. You're certified.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And like, my guess is like they've had other people come out,
Try to do it.
try to do it, fly there. And I mean, they're super close to the airport. It's all, the strip is a no-fly zone. The whole thing is a
Okay.
zero grid.
Okay.
So thankfully, because there's a billion people, you don't want a bunch of people like throwing drones in the air.
What would happen if you did fly a drone over?
So it's basically illegal if you don't have the prior authorization. But a lot of drones, like DJI, your favorite, that they have like basically geofences around airports and no-fly zones.
Oh, so you can't even get them in there.
So yeah, you'll try to take off, and then it'll say, "Hey, you're in a no-fly zone,"
Mm.
which is a really good safety precaution.
Yeah, that's super smart.
Some people obviously hate it because then they can't just take off,
Right.
but it prevents the people who have no idea. Like, in the news the other day, I don't know if it was like a football stadium or a baseball, Major League Baseball game that was going on. A guy with his friends, he bought a drone and took it in like a parking lot, flew it over like a Major League Baseball stadium or arena or something.
Just watching the baseball game from a DJI.
And he was like just showing his friends, like, I got this new drone. Let's check it out. What's going on at the stadium?
Oh,
And
yeah.
then they totally had to leave the whole inside. They had to basically evacuate into the sides. And then the SWAT team went out and found him and arrested him
Oh man.
because it's a no-fly zone. It's a restricted airspace.
So what happens with that? Like, if somebody does get arrested, are they like prosecuted, or is it kind of like, hey bro, just don't do this again? They take it pretty seriously?
Yeah, I mean, you can face jail time. I think one guy who did it for the Super Bowl accidentally. And most of these cases are like negligent. Like, they didn't know what was going on.
Right, right,
But it also still, it's like, hey, that's the rule.
right.
And so I think he had like 11 months in jail that he was facing. I don't know if he actually served.
Okay.
And then he had like a $50,000 fine.
That's wild.
And this guy, I don't know, he got arrested, but I'm sure because it's what happens in those areas with arenas and like major league stuff. They're temporary flight restrictions
Okay.
that make it like a no-fly zone for a certain period of time,
Gotcha.
because you don't want everyone with the opportunity to go over that place, like with, a million people in that arena.
Right.
It's a huge safety concern because you could easily do something, attach something to the
Right,
drone and make
right.
it like a really big deal.
Well, they're talking about now like Amazon using drones.
Yeah.
Which is
Eventually. I mean, they've been talking
Yeah.
about that for like 10 years.
yeah. What do you think will
We'll
happen
see.
with that?
It's a matter of time. I mean, Walmart's
Right.
already doing it.
Okay.
Walmart was like one of the first. UPS was officially the first. They were delivering medical samples.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
With drone. So the big challenge is like delivery with drones. So you're delivering a product, delivering something. And then there's also the beyond visual line of sight. So like for me, legally, for me to take off, I have to see the drone at all times during the flight, or I have to be able to see it.
Okay.
So if it's a mile away and it goes behind a building, I can't see it.
So what if it's cloudy?
If it's cloudy, so you also have other restrictions when it comes to weather.
Okay.
So if it's like really, really foggy and
Right.
like the visibility is really low, then you legally can't fly either. You have to fly by like visual flight rules, which means clear of clouds and stuff.
So why don't they just so okay, so why is there not more regulation on the actual purchase of it? Like why is this not being talked about more?
Well, yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is it's considered a toy in like I mean, because you can get them so small,
Right.
and it's like, oh man, this is a cool toy.
That's another thing I want to ask about is the 249. But
Oh yeah, the
continue.
grams.
Yeah. But finish that and then we'll go into the grams.
But yeah, it's just looked at it more as like a toy, and it's
Okay.
like, I mean, these drones can get up pretty high. Like,
I've seen some they can get like miles away from people.
yeah,
Like what is
easily.
the DJI, the big DJI, is it the Pro? Is it the biggest one they make?
No, I mean they make some huge ones. I mean they make for some ag drones that are massive that carry like huge liters of, stuff that they're spraying on crops and stuff.
But like what's the biggest that you have?
So I've got a Mavic 3 Cine.
Okay.
That's like kind of like this big. It's not super big. Like
Now how far can you get that away from you before it stops working or turns around?
I mean it says like 3 miles,
That's crazy.
but you'll never get that far.
Right. It's probably closer to like 1.5 or 2.
Yeah, I think I've probably gotten it like maybe a mile away, but it's like at that point, what am I doing? Like, why am I flying that far away?
Right.
And can I even see it?
Okay.
I mean, no.
Yeah.
Like, you go past a mile. I mean, even half a mile, it's like very hard to see because
Right.
it's like a little speck. I mean, it looks like a bird.
How high did they get?
They can get up to like a couple miles, so like 10,000 feet. That's what they say. But I mean, so legally, every drone can operate up to 400 feet. So that's like the ceiling across the board for the US.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to get higher, then you have to get an approval from the FAA to do that, to say, hey, I want to go up to 1,000 feet with a drone. But I mean, it's pretty easy to just change the settings on that and have a higher limit. So,
Gotcha.
but legally up to 400 feet is like kind of the ceiling for everything, because that's when the potential for aircraft are to be up at like 500 feet.
Gotcha. Because you start talking about like helicopters and military vehicles.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes helicopters are super low too. I mean, I've had to get out of the way of helicopters
really?
sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Depending on where I'm flying. Because they'll go really low.
Have you ever hit anything with your drone?
No, I mean, I've hit a tree branch and crashed. Well,
Right.
barely didn't crash, but it was close.
Nothing fun there.
I've hit myself.
What? How did you hit yourself?
Oh, well, I was trying to grab it and keep it from falling out of the sky. I was like, I'd rather have a nick on my fingers than
Oh my
have this
gosh.
thing drop.
That's funny.
But yeah.
I got a real cheap drone for Christmas one year and I lost it on my uncle's. So it wasn't, it was one of those like knockoff DJIs. Like it looks like a DJI, it's got the same color, but it's like $400 as opposed to like 2,000.
Yeah.
And so I'm flying it around and one time it like crashed into a tree, like had no, what is it called? Like object navigation.
Obstacle avoidance.
Obstacle avoidance. Didn't work. So I'm like looking at it. I'm like, oh, cool. Oh. And so it gets, I get it. Like I'm like trying to get it to come back to me and the battery dies over my uncle's garage.
Okay.
And he's
so you got on the roof?
He's got an RV garage. Well, that's where the story starts to get good. So it just dies and it's on the roof. And I'm like, shoot. And this roof's like 20 feet in the air is where it starts. And there's no windows, nothing. It's an RV garage. It's separate from the house. And so I get a ladder and the ladder takes me to about right here, face level. And the drone is like 10 feet. So I have to go get a broom and I'm reaching and it's like July. So my hand is on the roof and I'm trying to get my drone and my arm is like burning.
Oh yeah.
From the roof. And I had like burn marks on my arm from how hot the roof was.
Worth it.
And I got my drone back and it didn't work.
Ah.
The only thing I wanted from that drone though was my SD card.
Get the footage, baby.
Yeah. Now do DJIs, do they use SD cards or do they have it all digitally through the cloud? Both?
So none of it's through the cloud. Most of them are SD cards. The Mavic 3 has like an internal. A lot of them have like small internal like SSD drives.
Okay.
That you can go off of, and then most of them have the micro SD, which I mean has been easier because then you don't have to have like data on the drone, but it doesn't upload to like the cloud or anything.
Gotcha.
You just have to plug it in.
You know, I've been giving DJI a bunch of crap, but I actually have a DJI gimbal, and you have to use the DJI Mimo app. Or Mimo?
I don't know.
We're gonna call it Mimo. Get some comments. The Mimo app, and I'm pretty sure they've used some of mine. my stuff because
You saw it.
I've.
You saw it online.
Why would the CCP not want my information?
Seriously.
Why would they not want to know about Michelle and I reading our Bibles outside of a hot tub? That
That's
seems
really
like
important.
that's pertinent information. If you're gonna overthrow a country, you might as well come to me.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like DJI has just made such an amazing product.
It's good equipment. It's really good equipment.
I mean, it's the best, and that's why they're the best. I mean, there's a few. There's Autel, there's Skydio. Like
We've talked about them.
Some of them are American made, but I mean, they just don't compare.
And DJI is the only one that sponsors this podcast.
Yeah, I'll gladly get a new DJI M30T.
I know, right?
If they want me to.
If like 2 people buy a DJI because of this podcast, then I deserve a DJI because that's
100%. I'll give you a Mavic Mini or something.
That'd be cool. So what is the 249 rule?
So
explain it to all the people, not myself, but all the people that don't understand it.
Because you understand it completely.
I've fully done my research.
So in the US, to get like, you need to basically register your drone if it's over 249 grams or 250 grams, whatever that threshold is. And so if you want to get a drone that's smaller than that, which is the Mini 3, the Mini 4 Pro that just came out, you don't have to legally register it because it's small enough. It's like 249 grams or something. And so that just means like when you register it, just like your car, they give you like a number. It's super, super cheap. It's like $5 for like 2 years.
Okay.
But if you're using any drone for commercial purposes, you still have to register it.
And what do you mean by commercial purposes?
If you're potentially getting paid or someone's giving you something in exchange for you flying the drone, then that's considered commercial.
Now, what if you just use it for a YouTube channel where you're getting paid from the footage?
Still? I mean, that's definitely a gray area.
Okay.
I'm sure the FAA would say like it's commercial. When it comes down to it, it's like, well, I post stuff on social media all the time. I don't get directly paid for social media posts.
Right.
But people find my stuff and then they hire me and like I work with them. So it's like it's a gray area for me at least. But when it comes down to it, it's like if you're getting paid to fly, whether someone's saying, hey, why don't you go get a shot of my roof? I'll give you some football tickets. That's considered compensation. So if you're going like, I'm going to use this footage to make money off of it, whether like a lot of people will tell me like, oh, I'm just using this for my website so that I can get a really good shot like on the homepage. I'm like, okay, well, are you making money from your website? Absolutely. That's the reason you have a website.
Right.
So like if you're putting that footage up there, that means that the intended purpose is to make money with it.
Right.
But the thing is, I mean, it all just comes down to enforcement. Like I educate all the cops that talk to me and try to arrest me. Like I tell them what the rules are. They don't really know. Like some of them do, but most people have no idea what's legal and what's like not legal.
Right.
So if you like, for me, like when I went to Caesar Palace, they were like, oh my gosh, like, you know what you're doing? Like you have your license. Oh my gosh. Like you got airspace approval.
Oh, so they
don't even know what that is, but like it's
usually somebody like some cousin or something that tries to do it. And it's,
yeah, I mean, because most people have no idea like what the rules are.
Right.
Which, I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, it's hard to understand. There's a lot of stuff, but it's like, that's what they set up. So I'm going to do it to the best of my ability and follow the rules. And when I see people not doing it, like I'm not expecting them to just get arrested immediately. Like,
yeah,
that's just not going to happen because most cops are already way too busy. The only time I get like have to deal with cops is when someone calls the cops on me.
Okay.
So I was like on campus.
Yeah, tell me some stories about this. I want to hear. All right, and now, is this the only thing you've educated cops on the law about? Like you haven't been educating them on other things, right?
Well, they've educated me on a few things.
Oh my gosh.
But I was on campus at UNLV and I was doing a video shoot they've got these like moving robots that like roll around.
Yeah,
like
the security
R2D2.
robots. Yeah.
No, they're not security. They deliver food
Those
from
things,
the cafeteria.
You ever watch Doctor Who?
No.
Oh, they look like Daleks, which is like Doctor Who. I
Oh,
thought,
really?
yeah, I thought you were gonna say that you had, and then we were gonna high five, and there was gonna be like a cool moment
I'll
there.
have to look it up after.
I'll show you a picture. Keep going.
But yeah, so we were shooting some footage across campus, chasing after these like little robots, and for a client, and the cops kind of come up to me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to get my drone to take off. I'm having problems for whatever reason." Oh,
Is that what you're talking about?
no.
Have you ever seen the security
I
ones?
mean, that looks like a coffee strainer or something.
Yeah, I don't know. When,
It looks like a cooler
okay, so
on wheels.
so the whole purpose, these were created in like the 60s or 70s when the first Doctor Who's came out, like the first episodes, and then and they just never updated what they look like. So
Oh, that's cool.
it's
Vintage.
yeah, so like the new episodes, you're like, what are these stupid trash cans doing? But they're like his biggest enemy. He hates them.
Wow.
And also, have you heard of Gigantopithecus?
No,
I had an Uber passenger tell me about it.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I don't. It's apparently it's Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
There
There
you
you go.
All right, what were you saying?
But yeah, so they came and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm trying to fly my drone. Like, what are you guys up to?" And I know they're like trying to like they're coming to stop me or something.
Yeah,
And they're like, "So, do you like have approval to fly here?" Because really, they're just hoping that I know what I'm doing
right.
versus like being some stupid kid that like got a
Right.
drone for Christmas and now I'm on campus trying to fly it around and like peer into some
Sure.
windows.
It's like they know enough about the law to know like who probably should and shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
It's like if you act like you know what you're doing,
You
all right,
wear-
buddy.
You,
Yeah,
you
sounds
put a
good.
yellow vest on and you
Yeah.
can basically get anywhere.
It's like a 13-year-old kid with a fake ID. Looks pretty good to me.
Move it along.
What is it? Is it Benchwarmers when he's like, he's got documentation? It's like I'm 12, green crayon with a $10 bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Just shoves the money in his pocket.
That's what I tell them. I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. But yeah, so they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm doing a video production shoot hired by this company to capture some footage of these robots. If you see a robot, like, let me know because I can't find them. I literally couldn't find it for the life of me." But
Have you seen any robots?
so they were like, okay, well, we've gotten some complaints that you were like outside of people's windows. And I was like, okay, well, that's
I would hope you were outside of it.
I mean, I'm
It's not-
definitely outside.
like that's a vague term. You should be like, officer, that is true. Now, if you hear of complaints of me inside of somebody's window,
No, you
should-
really need to check on that.
we might need you. But until then, mind your own dang business.
But yeah, I was like,
Officer.
well, I was like, I'm getting footage for this. You know, I've been flying around in multiple locations on
Right.
site, on campus. And they're like, "Oh, well, so you're working with this company. Okay, interesting." And I was like, and just so you know, like there's an airport right here, right next to us. So it's like illegal to fly here unless you have approval to fly.
Right.
So here's my certificate of authorization. If you want to look that over. And they're like, right when I gave it to them, they were just like, "Oh, thank God."
Like we don't,
And they don't even probably know what that is.
right.
But they're
just
like, "This looks profesh."
this
Like,
looks official. His name's on the guest
like,
list.
he definitely didn't like make this up on Canva. This is definitely some sort of document.
It's not written in green crayon.
Yeah, and I was like, "So we've got approval to fly up to like 150 feet here, blah blah blah." Kind of just going through like
Right.
what I'm doing, and like they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, just be safe." And that's basically what happens anytime like a cop shows up. I just kind of walk them through, and usually I'm just educating them. Like, if you ever see anyone else flying here, they probably don't have like authorization to fly here. Probably check on this. Ask them, "Hey, do you have a COA? Are you approved to fly here?" And then you'll know if they're like professional or not.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, what do you mean?" It's like, "This is controlled airspace." "Oh, I had no idea." That's what most people would say.
Huh. I wonder how many like interactions with police officers, like they know the law because they had the exact same interaction with somebody that did know the law. Or like they bust a lawyer for doing something stupid. And it's like, well, do you know this? And they're like, oh my gosh, it's not even worth the headache.
Yeah, I've got actually 2 cops in my coaching program who are drone pilots who
Okay.
who have started drone businesses. And so I'm coaching them on building their business. And I was asking them like, "Hey, when you get calls about drone stuff, like what's the protocol? What do you guys do?" And they're in other states, but they were like, well, basically, we're not out patrolling like, oh, this is a controlled airspace area, so we're looking
Right.
for drones. Most people have no idea what that is. But when they get calls, it's typically calls of people thinking the drone is invading their privacy.
Right.
And
It's like over their roof or in their yard or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, have you heard those? You've heard those stories of like, a girl will be at the pool in her
Yeah.
backyard and the drone just stops. It was
Yeah.
like going real fast.
Yeah.
Like comes back. It's like, yeah, you just hear the backup light, the beeps. It's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, so that is definitely like invading personal privacy. But like,
Think?
if I'm flying over someone's private property and there's like some sort of gray area and stipulations between this, because there have been a lot of cases about like, hey, you flew a drone over my property.
Right.
And then the drone pilot wins because he was flying the drone over the property. And like, you don't own the airspace like above your property. Like, you own you have a reasonable right to privacy. So if I'm going up to
Hovering.
your window
Yeah.
and like trying to like see you in the shower, then yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'm
weird.
I'm invading your privacy. Or if like you have, you're outside, you've got your pool and stuff, and I'm like just getting a bunch of footage, that's invading your privacy.
So you can't do either of those?
Well, unless you want me to.
Oh, okay.
If you're like, hey, come over and get some pool shots of us, then I'm like, all right.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was asking for a friend, but okay, go ahead.
But yeah, it's like, okay, well, are you getting footage for, the reasons of not commercial use? Like, oh, I'm flying, because most of the times when I'm flying over someone else's property, I'm just doing that because I'm getting a shot of a different property.
Right.
Like, I can't get the shot when
That you
I'm
want.
on over that property.
What's the rules with like state parks and public land, or like,
So national parks are no-fly zones unless
Really?
you get FAA approval.
is that hard to get for a national park? Like, if you want to go to
Yeah.
Zion, it is hard to get.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh wow.
Just because like it's very like buttoned down. They don't want, I mean, who would? Like, you go to the Grand Canyon and there's like a billion drones. Like, I mean, I would
Yeah.
love to get some footage of that,
Right.
but you need to be there for like a specific reason.
Could you get approval if you wanted to? Like, are you qualified enough? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I could apply for it, and then like the worst thing to say is like no.
okay.
But typically like they'll work with you and say like, oh, well, what are you trying to do it for?
Right.
And if usually when I'm working for somebody, I'm like, well, this is the job that we're doing. I'm trying to get some drone footage for this client. We're
Right.
doing this project, blah, blah, blah. And then kind of walk through that. But yeah, so you can't fly in national parks. The state parks obviously are controlled by the state. So it just depends on like what state you're in. Some of them are like, no, you can't fly here. Some of them are like, yes, but you need to get a permit. You need to apply for a permit.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there's just stipulations. Like, Red Rock is not a national park or anything, so you can go out and fly there. And they have like rules. They're like, okay, well, drones you can fly here, but you've got to operate like within these limitations.
Okay.
Which is all just FAA regulations.
Okay.
But you can't necessarily like fly commercially out there.
Can't.
Yeah. So if you're a
it's
hobbyist,
all recreation. So if you put it in a vlog that is monetized, you cannot use that footage. Or, I mean, is it just
potentially.
is it again just one of those enforcement things?
Well, so when it comes to like Red Rock specifically, because like a lot of people go out there and shoot some footage, when it comes to even like photo shoots, you need a permit. So sometimes people will go out there, do a photo shoot, and they'll like take someone's camera and say, hey, like, do you have your permit? And they say no.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
That's where I got engaged and we took a video. So
That's happened. But it's like, where's the
Oh,
line?
yeah.
Because like if everyone in the world like pulling out their iPhone is now like potentially
Illegal?
like liable for like, oh, if I'm gonna monetize this now, like I need a permit. It's like,
yeah.
you can't track that. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
of knowing like, is the footage this or that. And so, but with the drones, like if you're doing like a production, then you do need like a permit. Like, and that's basically just the commercial. So if someone's like, hey, I want to pay you to fly and follow my car, we're going to do a car chase scene at Red Rock, the scenic loop.
Right.
Then I would say, okay, well, we need to apply for a permit.
Okay.
And then they can approve or deny it. I think it's like $200, but sometimes they have permitting stuff. Sometimes other parks have other stuff, restrictions. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like they want to protect the land and make
Yeah.
sure like not a million people are just flying drones ruin the scene.
Yeah, it makes sense. It just seems like it would be a really hard thing to enforce. And when you're talking about like the phone thing, like what cop is going to go all the way out to Red Rock and arrest somebody for videotaping? Like I just said, my engagement. Like if
Yeah.
somebody's going to enforce the rule there, that's like the dumbest thing ever. No cop. If
Yeah.
a cop does that, it's like, dude, you probably shouldn't even be a cop. Like this is a ridiculous.
It's like how
thing to
many
enforce.
people have gone out there and like gotten footage and used that to do something for their business,
Right.
you know? Like you just don't really know. So it's a gray area for sure.
Yeah.
The footage itself. But if anyone's like, hey, I'm paying you to go out there, then I'm always like, even like any photographer, I'd recommend like definitely get a permit, because there is that potential that they come out
Right.
and say, hey, look, like you don't have a permit. You're doing a photo shoot. You're doing like a photo production or whatever
Right.
they like call it, and you can't.
Who usually is it? Usually park rangers that bother
Yeah.
you out there? Okay.
I've never seen it, but people
never-
have told me
I've never even seen a park ranger out there.
they're too busy.
Yeah.
They're trying to steer clear of you.
Probably. I would. Just kidding. I'm a big wimp. That's funny you bring up the phone thing. It reminded me of a story. So, because it is true. Like everybody's like, what is like if somebody has a Canon or a Sony or a drone, that's a camera, but an iPhone's not. So you can
Yeah.
have your iPhone anywhere, but you can't bring this in. And it's just that is a gray area too, because it's like it is a camera. Like I have a camera on my phone and I can use it anytime, but that's not okay.
It's socially acceptable. But if
It-
you get like a Nikon, it's like, oh man, like this person's really getting photos.
Right. They intend to do a good job with it.
Yeah, I'm doing a bad job
Yeah.
capturing bad photos.
Right. I had one of my better vlogs that I've done was a day in the life when I was in college.
Mhm.
And so we temporarily had the weight room in because our weight room was getting redone. So we had the weight set in like the indoor football practice facility. And I did like a pano like this. Like I'm literally like walking around like, oh, I'm just, about to lift weights. There's nobody in there.
Yeah.
And one of the football coaches comes up to me, and I'm an approachable guy. Like I've been there 3 years. Like people know who I am. Like
Yeah,
I
okay.
interned at the weight room, and I was just getting a video to like, promote the wrestling team,
Sure, yeah.
promote myself, like put my stuff out there. And it was literally just like this. And he comes up and he's like the biggest dickhead you could possibly imagine. And it's like,
He just didn't like you.
no, he didn't. And he goes, what are you filming? And I'm like, oh, I'm just, doing a video. Like he's like, hey, what are you filming? And it's like, first of all, Oregon State is like 2-14. So nobody would, get your game film for free. Like let's just get that on the table. Second of all, I'm an Oregon State athlete. I want them to win. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like anti-Oregon State. Like I'm not going to sell your game film. Like it's just stupid. And he was just like such a jerk. If he would have come up and said, hey brother, like what are you filming? Like we just, we're trying to keep the integrity. Like we don't want people filming our practices. Like, oh, no big deal. But the reason I bring up the iPhone is because so they made a rule. He went up to the wait staff and the athletic director and said the headband guy has been filming our practices. And so they pull me in, and the guy I used to intern for, our strength coach, is like, hey, I'm like, I told him the story. He's like, okay, no big deal, whatever. But like he was just so
Just
malicious.
gotta show him the footage.
Yeah, he's just so I did. I was like, it's in this video. Like I did not. I literally went like this. You can't see the football team, the crappy football team from
He was just worried that you were getting his bad side.
It was so ridiculous. And I was like, for days, like, I'm going to confront this stupid coach. Like, cause it pissed me off. But the reason I brought it up was because every single football player films on their iPhone,
Yeah.
on TikTok,
Yeah.
on Snapchat, like every time they go to weights, and they made us stop bringing our cameras to weights. Like you can't film in the weight room. And I was like, well, what about iPhones?
Yeah.
And then they went back and said, well, you can't film with iPhones. I ruined it for everyone. So no more
Wow.
football players making TikTok videos of
There
them
you go.
lifting weights. But it was just, I don't know, it's just kind of a stupid story.
Yeah, it's just like accessibility. It's like, well, where does it end? Like,
Yeah.
Clark County or Vegas area, they've tried to put out this like regulation for drones
Right.
that like any drone flight is considered a production. And
Mm,
so you need a permit to do it.
Yeah.
So every drone flight, you get your drone from Best Buy tomorrow. You get the Mini 4 Pro. You're super jacked.
Can't afford it.
But-
Unless they sponsor this pod.
yeah, put it in the air. And then Clark County's like, that's a production. It's like, okay, so where do we draw the line? And I think it's just easy with drones to be like, well, you know, you're going to get it's going in the air and there's all these potential issues.
Right.
So we're just going to like crack down and like no one can do it. And so everyone needs to get a permit. And it's like, that's insane. Like if you did that for every person who had a phone on the strip who was capturing footage, that was probably doing it like for professional purposes.
Yeah. How
Like-
many people go to the strip and take stupid pictures
Yeah.
in order to like show their Instagram followers?
Yeah. And it's like maybe you're getting monetized from that. Like, oh, but with a drone, now it's a whole nother ball game. And it's
Right.
like, honestly, it's just another, like, especially like less than 250 grams.
Right.
It's so small. Like, yeah, there's the potential to hurt people. But what I'm capturing is not now considered a production.
Well, what if you don't even record?
Exactly. And I'm like, hey, well, I mean, it says video production. So if I'm taking photos, I guess it's not then. Right.
That's a weird loophole. Well, just think about like if I go to the UFC event, like if I recorded it's kind of a different one, but it's the same thing because if like T-Mobile, if I recorded a fight on TV, like or if I take a video of the fight, like let's say somebody gets knocked out, and I take a video and I post that, illegal. I can go to jail. But if I'm at the event and I take a video and I post it, my content, and I can get monetized for it. And people do that all the time.
Dang.
But it's like one of those gray areas. It's like I can put the live production out because it's not this particular footage.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like video is such a weird thing. There's so much gray area. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
nuance.
And then like it all also it's like I've filmed a ton of like footage for other influencers. And so I see their content, drone shots, my drone shots that they've used. Obviously they paid me for it, but they're using that on their social media. And what if the FAA was like, hey, this is, you know, not legal? Well, technically it's not even their footage. Like they didn't even fly.
Yeah.
So then you get into the whole like, well, who was the pilot? Who was flying it? Who was capturing it?
Right.
And it's just such like a wormhole
right.
that you just can't even like track any of that stuff.
What if I used unauthorized footage from, like, let's say I went and screen recorded unauthorized footage? Could I get in trouble for that?
Yeah.
Really? So, like, if I see a video from the strip right now, because I was thinking about doing this the other day, like if I'm doing a Vegas vlog and I find a video from the strip, now I could probably get in trouble for copyright, but I screen record that video and put it in my own. I don't know the pilot. I don't know what
yeah,
kind of
then you would be fine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. But like there have been like a ton of like videos that get posted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like someone comments like, oh, the FAA is gonna find this, and they'll find the pilot. Like some of them are like very, very like, this is definitely illegal. And so they'll easily go after that person. And if especially if someone like reports it.
Right.
Like there was one dude, he did this amazing FPV, so first person view where you have goggles,
right,
flying the drone. He flew around this train and flew inside the train, outside the train, next to the conductor. And the conductor like moved or like closed the window. And then that's technically like infringing on the transportation of the train. And so he was affecting that train or whatever, the conductor. And that's illegal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like there's like transportation, there's just all these different things that are considered like areas we can't fly. And so everyone knew like when he posted that, like coolest video ever, but the FAA is coming after him. And they did, you know.
Do you know anything about the case, or?
He got a pretty like big hefty fine.
Fine.
I don't think it's disclosed, but I think it was at least $5,000.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like that one's not good. So yeah, some of them are like definitely, and like I mean, you have other people who usually report it, and that's when the FAA sees it.
Right.
But then sometimes it comes back, and it's like, well, I just reposted that. That's actually not my footage.
Yeah.
So
is it mostly just boiled down to it's a common sense thing? Like if you think you probably shouldn't do this, you probably shouldn't do it. Like are there people like doing jail time or putting up huge fines when they're like, Dude, I accidentally flew over the guy's house, like, and he reported it because he's a freaking 75-year-old man and he's weird. Like,
Not with those, but like
yeah,
we're gonna I mean, it's gonna get worse and worse and worse when there are like, especially around sporting events like the Super Bowl, and then you have someone take off. The whole week is a no-fly zone.
everything's gonna have to be a dome. There's not gonna be like any.
Yeah, eventually probably.
I would
But it's
imagine.
still illegal. Like Allegiant Stadium's closed, but if you have an event there, you can't legally fly an hour before to an hour after the
Mm,
event,
really?
because like there's just going to be like a zoo of people
Right.
going in, going out, and it's just a safety concern. And that's just going to happen more and more where you see like, oh, another drone guy bought a drone at Best Buy, didn't know that like taking it up in the air and going in, airspace like that was illegal,
Yeah.
and now he's facing this jail time or fines or whatever.
Are the conversations around this like, because I'm not in the industry, I'm just curious about it. Are the conversations around this kind of like similar to like gun conversations where it's like not everybody should be able to have a drone? Like you should have to go to like a certain kind of school or take some kind of online class to even own one before you can get one.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think since you do have to have a license for it, you do have
Right.
to take a test. You do have to get it registered. Um, I'm sure there's like some discussion about it, but not really.
Nothing to
mean,
your knowledge.
it's like, yeah, maybe not everyone should have a drone or be able
Right.
to have a drone, but it's like, well, then again, like, I mean, are you just flying for fun or like, what are you doing?
Right.
So it's not necessarily like it could potentially hurt someone, but like not the way like a gun could. Like
Right. Right. Right.
the drone is intended to be in the air.
It's a
flying
privacy
around,
thing. It has nothing. Like, I mean, unless a drone like falls from the sky and hits somebody in the head.
which yeah has
Right.
happened, but yeah, I mean that's not really the concern. Now it's just like the FAA is trying to keep up with everything,
Yeah.
and remote ID is something that has just been coming out like in September, where now it's going to be easier to like track drones
Mm.
and track the pilot who's flying the drone.
Okay. So kind of like a VIN number for a car.
Well, it's basically more like a GPS. So like if you were like who's flying that drone, you can get the drone stats and then you can get the stats of the person and where they're at.
What do you think about that? Do you think people should know about like who's flying what drone
I
if they have the
think
proper approval?
I think overall to move the industry forward, it's absolutely necessary,
Okay.
because if I want to fly to LA,
Right.
I want to fly a drone to LA from here, I'm going to need some serious ability to like have other people know where the drone's going, information about the drone,
Right.
detection, all that kind of stuff, to have like a safe flight, just like every like plane that takes off. But it's also a huge infringement on privacy of drone pilots right now, the way that they launched it.
Gotcha.
And we're still in like the rollout of it.
Yeah.
But basically the way they did it is now it's like the open source,
Okay.
where like if you wanted to find out who was flying that drone,
Right.
you could find out where they are potentially.
Yeah.
And they did that for like fire departments and safety. They're like, well, if public safety needs to find that person, they need to be able to find it really quick. They shouldn't be able to, or they shouldn't have a bunch of firewalls that they have to get through.
Right.
It's like, okay, I mean, technically, yes, but that means that everyone and their mother who has a phone can now know that I'm flying a $5,000 piece of equipment and where I'm at. And it's like people already are trying to figure out what I'm doing without that.
Right. Right.
Now it's like, oh, there's a drone in the air. Where's the pilot? All right. It's like only a matter of time before someone decides like it's time to take this pilot's drone,
Right.
Like that's expensive equipment. And I think that's the concern. I think overall it's a great idea and it's mandatory for where the industry wants to go,
Right.
but how they're doing it is definitely concerning to drone pilots.
What is the intent? Like, what are some of the things that drones are going to revolute? Like in 10 years, what does the drone businesses look like? Is like mail, like Amazon delivery completely overrun by drones? Is there a lot of just crazy amount of drones in the air. Is there going to be like big businesses that try to keep small businesses or random people from even owning drones that can, fly to LA, like you said? Like, how is that? I'm sure that's probably already in the works, but like, what do you foresee happening with drones?
I mean, I think I know a lot about it, but I think I don't even know.
Okay,
Like it's the tip of the iceberg.
gotcha.
But I think security is going to be drone like all day, every day.
Okay,
So like you're trying to secure a building, your like security guards are now just going to be like either automated drones. I think a big thing is going to be automation with drones.
okay,
Like DJI came out with the drone in the box, where basically you can put a box down and open it up and deploy the drone without anyone being there, which is pretty like next level. It's like
so okay,
space age stuff.
what do you mean?
So basically, you can press a button and the box opens up and the drone's like ready to fly. And then the drone can take off. And you could potentially do that remotely.
So
That's
you
the
don't
idea.
push any buttons on the drone or anything. It's already
Yeah,
just
it's
a
not like
box.
I'm out there like opening the box and then putting the drone together and then starting the drone and flying it. It's like all automated.
Okay.
And so I think that's the future for sure. For a lot of industries. But like, yeah, security. Um, for me, like I love video production, I love cinematography.
Right.
That's always gonna be like manual flying because just creativity in general can't be like replicated, you know.
Right.
So if I'm really good at like video production, capturing really, really cinematic shots, like there's not gonna be like automated cameras that like tell the whole story of a movie basically. So
Right.
I'm not worried about that. It's more like the construction stuff where they want to get weekly updates. So I'll do monthly and weekly updates for a lot of projects.
Okay.
There's potential that they could just have a drone in the box just on like the construction site, and then once a week the construction manager goes, I want to get like some updated shots of the construction site, and then kind of presses the button. Maybe he's there, maybe he's not. Maybe he's in his office, like in another city, and he's like, all right, deploy the drone on 123 Street or whatever. And it goes up, captures the footage, and then comes down. That's definitely going to happen.
Okay.
So there's going to be more drone like traffic. Really, in the next 5 or 10 years, we're also probably going to see something that's called VTOLs, vertical takeoff and landing devices,
Okay.
which are big like air taxis. That's basically what it is,
Okay.
where it's a drone like thing that's made to carry people. Like that's 100% going to happen in the next decade.
Really?
Oh, 100%.
So that will be like, is that what's going to happen with cars?
So, I mean, it's
Eventually?
just like, you know, when cars came out, it's not like everyone got a car.
Right.
You know, Ford, when like that started, it was because he marketed like everyone should have a car. So I'm going to make a car that's actually reasonable
Affordable.
priced. Yeah, affordable
Right.
for everyone to have. Before that, there were still cars. It was just very expensive.
Right.
People who were like the owner of the Raiders, like he's probably going to have one. 100%. It's just
Right.
like a helicopter, but
Right.
it's going to be now really what they're trying to do is bring it into like air travel. So like if I'm in Summerlin and I've got a flight from Vegas to LA or Vegas somewhere, there's probably going to be a Summerlin hub where I go and grab an air taxi to take me to the airport versus grabbing an Uber to take me to the airport. And like all these big cities, that's what they're really going to try to do. It's like to avoid, just to like remove all the like congestion on the
Yeah.
roads. So that's their goal, is like, let's use these VTOLs to be another part of, maybe it's like I buy that plane ticket and that's included in it.
Right.
And then eventually, like in a long time from now, who knows, like once it actually becomes affordable, then people are just going to be using them all the time.
People will be able to fly. Oh,
Yeah. And like, yeah, that would be cool.
that
I
would be
mean,
cool.
The military people are flying.
But would it be so think about, what do you mean?
I mean, they've got those crazy things that they have on their arms and stuff.
Oh, like the jetpacks.
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
jetpacks.
Yeah.
They're running around and stuff.
Yeah, but those aren't like, I don't know.
I want one of those.
Yeah.
Should get that company to sponsor this.
I know that'd be That'd be so cool. We're just like going around a jet, just like
100%.
Iron Man.
Dude, I saw one of them crash though. They were like racing and he took a tumble. I think one of them like malfunctioned.
He die.
I mean, he just rolled around a little
Shut
bit.
up. Just kidding. He's lucky to be alive.
I definitely want one of those though.
So you're, yeah, right. That'd be so cool. But it wouldn't. I would like to see like at least 5 years of
People messing things up.
Yeah,
And
I-
getting hurt before.
well, you know what they say, like the Amish, like they wait for technology to like 100 years to see if it like has a success
Yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah.
on society. That's probably the approach I would take to something that I'm propelled. Like I didn't get on a plane until they were around for about 100 years. So I think that's a good, and I'm still
Oh,
scared. I'm
okay.
still scared to death of planes. So
I would do it in a heartbeat. I would literally do it
Really?
yesterday. Oh yeah.
no, not me.
Give me a shot, man.
Not doing it. You've seen have you ever seen videos of like the what's it called? It's not the skydiving, but it's when they use like the squirrel suit or whatever, the gliding suit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Those things are
what those
dangerous, man. They
called?
say that's like the most dangerous thing you can do.
I know. Yeah, me and Carrie talk about it. My wife talk about it a lot because a lot of like climbers, rock climbers,
Yeah, they
that's
do
our
that.
big hobby. A lot of them get into that for the like rush, the thrill seeking side.
It's got to be like a drug, right? Like they
Oh,
just
yeah.
can't see. People talk about fighting like that. I don't feel that.
Really?
No, yeah. When I'm getting punched in the face, I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't a drug. Like
This is
I
great.
yeah. I'm not like I want this more. Some people are. I've got a teammate, Sean Strickland, who I think is like that. Like he spars every day, and I think it's because he just like.
But I mean, not everyone is like that. Though.
No, I'm not. But I like fighting. It's weird, but it's not like a drug.
Yeah.
It's not like if I wasn't doing this, I would be high on meth. You know, like I think for some of those things, like that's how people are. Like those rock climbers that they free solo, right?
Yeah.
And which is just crazy. If somebody asked you to videotape, like to drone their free solo climb, would you do it?
Man, probably not. I
How,
don't know.
golly, can you imagine if they fell and it was on your drone?
Well, dude, yeah, I mean with Free Solo the movie, like Jimmy Chin and the camera crew, they had like a lot of footage of them like talking about like what happens if he falls.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, are we
It
gonna
goes
post
out
it
of
on our
frame.
YouTube?
And it's like, holy crap, man.
That's crazy.
Like and that's why he was so freaked out about it because he had soloed so much before. He had just never soloed with a bunch
Video.
of people watching him.
Yeah.
And he's like, usually I just go out and do it on my own. And like, no one knows about it. And I'm in the zone. But like in that movie, the first attempt that he did, he actually stopped halfway up
Yeah.
and he grabbed a bolt
Yeah.
and he was like, I don't want to do this. Because it was that feeling of like people around him. It just
pressure.
wasn't him. Yeah, pressure to perform.
Right.
Like if he wanted to go out and do it, he could have. But now it's like you kind of have to because everyone's ready and it's 3 a.m., bro. So
That had to be like the most like monkey off your back feeling when he got off, like so different than any other one. But because it's like you think about it, like I can go in the wrestling room, I can go in the MMA gym, like, and I could spar and hit pads and like wrestle and do all these things, and there's no pressure.
mhm.
But the second you turn the lights on, the second you give me a contract, like the second you do all these things,
Everything
you
changes.
put a date to it, you put an opponent. It's
Yeah.
like it's this pressure, and that had to be the first time that he felt like pressure in that regard. That's weird to think about. Like, how is there not pressure when you're
Well,
when you're
like-
300 feet in the air?
So, I mean, I know his story really, really well,
Okay,
and I don't agree with free soloing at all, but I do understand his mindset behind it. He's like, guys, I've done this like route, I've done this climb 1,000 times. I could do it with my eyes closed, and he
Do it.
does.
do it.
Like he's literally got a notebook that he writes down every single hold, every single movement. And it's like 3,000 feet of granite, but he has everything mapped out and he's done it 1,000 times. And now it's just like, okay, now I'm just not doing it with the rope. And so it's like, okay, well, on that aspect of it, like it makes sense, makes more sense. I don't agree with it. I think it's really crazy and dumb. But I mean, if you've done it 1,000 times you know every hold, you know what's going to happen. It's not like he's like, you know what, let me go free solo this. I've never tried it before. We'll see what
You
happens.
should do it. I'm just kidding. Do it, kids. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Joking.
Oh my
Totally
gosh.
joking. That's crazy. So tell me a little bit about your business. So you have you tell me. So you have a social media business that teaches people to do what? To actually learn how to fly drones, to monetize how to fly drones. What is
So yeah, it's not technically social media. But
okay.
like, so the one side, I'll kind of just run through the two sides. So there's the drone photography business,
Okay.
which people pay me to fly drones, whether it's construction, video production, real estate. I go out, like today, I had a solar job where we were capturing marketing photos for a company that installed solar.
Okay.
So we did that. And then I did a construction progress update for the City Light project.
Right.
Got some photos of the pad and stuff.
So wait, the photos that we'll see at church are those yours?
Yeah. When they play the video, that's mine.
No
That's my
way.
footage. Yeah.
Is it gonna be playing this Sunday?
Probably.
Is it gonna be playing at Revival Night?
I don't know.
Are you going? Are you going to Revival Night?
Yeah.
Was it Tommy Barnett? Is that his name or Bennett?
Yeah, Barnett.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna go in the morning because I'm probably gonna work.
Go to
But
the 6 instead.
We're gonna go to the 6. Yeah. That'd be cool.
lit.
That'd be cool. That'd be super cool. Well, if you
Yeah.
guys are in Vegas, I'll post this Monday. Never mind.
Just
Go ahead.
kidding. It was great.
It was awesome. We had such a
after the
great
fact.
time. Yeah. People got filled with the Holy Spirit and somebody spoke in tongues
There we go.
and it was awkward.
Amen. So, but yeah, so there's that side of it, which is really what I've done for the last 6 years.
Okay.
So I started the business. I started getting contracts, started working with small businesses, video production companies, just being like a drone pilot for other crews, and then running my own thing, editing videos, editing photos. And then last year, I officially launched my like coaching program
Okay.
for other drone pilots, just because over the last like 5 years, I've learned a ton. It took me way longer than I expected. The first year sucked. The second year was bad. And then it got better. But I learned so much through that process where it was like, man, it's not just necessarily like, obviously there's marketing, there's, the business side of everything, client relations, all that kind of stuff. But then you've also got the skill of like flying drones, capturing the content, and figuring out the deliverables for each industry that you want to work in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a lot to figure out, especially if
Right.
you've never run like a business before. It's like, man, like I just want to go out and fly my drone and make some money. And it's just
Yeah.
not that easy. And so over the last like 6 years, I had tons of pilots that would reach out and say like, hey, like, can you give me some advice? I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Like, I got my license, I did this, I've gotten one job, but I'm like really struggling to like, I don't know what I want to do in this industry or this or blah, blah, blah. So I'd give advice over the years and coach people like one-off stuff. And then, but I really like hated when pilots reached out because I'm like, dude, I've literally spent 5 years learning all this crap, and you're just gonna try to like learn it in 20 minutes on a phone call. Like, not
Yeah.
like, but I mean, I also love to give and love to teach people and help people.
Oh, so you hated it that it was free for them.
I mean, part of it was like, well, it was like,
So selfish.
it wasn't that it was like free.
Let's
it was,
see your motives here, Jacob.
It wasn't that it
No,
was
no, I get it.
free. It was that I wanted clients to be calling me. Like I wanted someone to say, Jacob, I need you to
Right.
like fly your drone. Like I need you to do this project for me.
Right.
And instead I'm talking to John who just got his license and he's trying to figure out what drone to buy.
Right.
And I'm like, why are you calling me, bro? Like I'm not an educator. Like,
Yet.
but yeah, but really like what I saw was like an opportunity in the marketplace. Like there's a lot of companies that were like teaching how to get your 107, a course for the license. Maybe how to do a mapping mission, maybe how to work in this industry. But there was never any course on how do I find clients and make money? And how do I know when I need to like invest in this and that and the other to actually like go into this industry?
Right.
And that's the questions that I had been asking for like such a long time. So I basically decided, you know what? Like I do really want to help these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I started a program, like people would find the value in it and I could teach what I love to do. And myself, like never wanted to just be like flying 40 hours a week
Right.
as a drone pilot. Same thing with like the commercial airlines. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want to be in the cockpit all day long.
Right.
Same thing with like flying. Like I love flying like drones, but I don't want to be in the field all day every day.
Right. Right.
It just tires me out. I get sick of it, and like I just get bored of just being out there. I'd
Right.
rather like talk to somebody, or I'd rather do something else because I love business.
Yeah.
That's really what got me into it.
Right.
It's like I've got this skill, I've got this experience, and I want to have a business.
Right. So, okay, wait. So let me stop you right there. So when you kept getting all these calls, so at this time you're not in the business. You just have your pilot's license and you know so much about drones. But you're not getting calls to do drone work.
Well, I had the business, but other pilots were just calling instead of clients.
Clients to like clients for people that wanted you to do the drone work or wanted you to teach them how to do drone work.
So it's like I was running my business. I had clients that were hiring me to like fly drones, make
Right.
money flying drones. But when pilots would call and say, "Hey, I need advice," it just pissed me off because I was like, I would rather have another client call and say like, "Hey, I need you to do a roof inspection. Hey, I need you to do a marketing video, like flying the drone, capturing footage." And then I was like, you know what? So many drone pilots are reaching out because my website's awesome. Like I've worked really hard on like having a great online presence.
What's your website called, by the way? That way anybody listening.
Yeah, it's JCL Aerial Services.
Okay.
That's the name of the company.
And I'll link it below.
Okay.
So
yeah, and
send
then
it to me.
my Instagram is all just about my coaching. So I'm at the drone coach.
Okay.
The _drone_coach. But I started that back in January because I was like, man, I love flying drones, but I also want to start helping other drone pilots.
Gotcha.
And I was like, why would I keep looking at these people who are calling me, wanting my help, and saying like, no? Like, why don't I help them and then figure out a product? Like, that's entrepreneurship right there.
Right. It's seeing a need and meeting the need. Yeah.
It's like, can I help someone like in this way? And like, do they want my help bad enough to like pay for it?
Yeah.
Then you have a product, then you have a business. And I was like, man, I would love to do that because I can talk about drones. It helps me as a drone pilot.
Right.
It builds my credibility because now I'm coaching other drone pilots.
Mm.
So it's not like I'm a drone pilot and I'm also an insurance salesman.
Right.
Or I'm a drone pilot and then I'm something completely different.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like everything I'm doing in the field, like I go out on Tuesdays and we have our coaching call and I'm like, hey, this is what I did this week. This is how I got this job. This is the experience I learned. Like, this is how you guys can take it and like do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it helps both sides. And like, I can use my drone footage to like build content and all that stuff. But that really like started this year formally, like where I started a coaching program and then started marketing it and saying like, hey, if you're an aspiring drone pilot trying to make money, you're struggling just like I was doing my first year.
Right.
Like I've developed a game plan to help other drone pilots to do what I did and then do it for yourself.
Have you talked to Omar about starting a YouTube channel completely for this? Or any kind of like instructional videos or?
Well, so me and Omar actually talked about it at the beginning of the year and I was like, I'm thinking about starting a coaching program. And he had like launched his previously and was talking, and I'm actually in his program. Mm-hmm. We actually just finished the video department program. Right. And he was like giving me some information about like what he did, how he launched it and stuff. And he was like, if that's, because I was like, man, I'm really feeling like I want to build this program to help other drone pilots. And like, I just don't really know like how I would do it. And he was like, well, would you consider yourself an expert in like drone piloting? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And he was like, so would other people find that skill valuable? Like, if you're an expert, a total expert in your field, like you should be able to train other people who are wanting to learn that skill set because it is valuable. Right. And for me, like I can monetize it. Like some people teach basket weaving. They still make a lot of money. Yeah. But the end result isn't even to like make more money. It's just to make baskets, know?
Right.
But he was like, if you are an expert, you should like you should be doing this for sure. And so he really did push me into it because I was like, I was thinking about doing it. I don't know. And he was like, do it for sure.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm an expert in video, in YouTube, in all this stuff. And he was like, really, what you should do is like start your Instagram and just post content because then you can directly reach those potential clients.
Well, he's a so-called expert. I'm just kidding. If you guys don't know, Omar, how do you say his last name?
El Tacori.
El Tacori. Okay,
Yeah.
it's spelled different. But Omar El Tacori of Think Media is our associate pastor. So that's who we're talking about.
Yeah, he's definitely really great. I took his the video department program.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was great. Learned a ton of stuff about just like video, and he's all about like the quality.
Yeah.
Like make quality content. And when you see him show up on Reels on Instagram, he's like very, very crystal clear.
Yeah.
Like his content is very, very like quality. And so like for me, it was like, you know what? And I think some people are on the other side where they're like, oh man, I just need it to be perfect. And I'll work on it and work on it and work on it and like maybe post a video like in a year.
That's so dumb.
And it's like, no,
The
like
consistency
literally
is key too.
point the phone around and start shooting content because you also have to get good. And like quality also does come with quantity.
Yes. It's
So-
it's like doing this. Like
Yeah.
the worst I got at this was the last year because I did like 3 or 4 episodes,
Yeah.
just moving around and getting married and everything. And I put this on the back burner and I got horrible at podcasting.
Yeah. And it's like if you aren't doing it consistently, like if you're doing like 100 videos like a week or like a billion videos or whatever, you're just automatically going to get better. And
Right.
like for me, like with like sales and stuff, with sales calls, I was like, man, like I don't know, like I'm not great at sales, like I'm not really used to it. And then I started training.
Right.
I started doing sales training, doing practice calls, like talking to like doing it. And it's like, man, my first call sucked, but then I got better.
Right.
My 100th call is way, way better than my first call.
Right.
And that's what I talk about in my program. It's like, man, you got to go out and just fly the drone.
Yeah.
Get the drone in the air and start blowing through some batteries, capturing some footage, because you have to get like quantity, consistency before like you get that brings that experience.
Right. I'll tell you, I think we're over, we're like in the hour and a half range almost. So
Okay.
we'll probably wrap it up here in a minute. We didn't get to
Sure.
talk about faith or dating
Part
as your
three.
wife suggested.
Yeah,
But
part
I
three.
know I really I would love to have you on again and but I honestly I was so curious about the drone stuff because it is something that I'm not going to be an expert like you ever, but just knowing about it, like it is
Mhm.
it is a curiosity and just like kind of knowing the ins and outs.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked probably an hour just on drone stuff. Like
I could talk about it forever, man.
I know
I do.
I don't want to get into like a faith conversation that's going to be cut short because I
Sure.
think that deserves its own podcast. But so
Definitely.
if at some point you do want to come on again, like love to have you.
All my people.
Yeah, I'll get
Get in touch with my people, man.
I'll have my assistant get a hold of your assistant, aka my wife and your wife. But no, so funny story about Omar. I started my YouTube channel about 4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I started watching Think Media pretty shortly after, and I think Omar
Really?
has been involved with them for a while.
Yeah.
But and I didn't even live in Vegas at the time. I moved in Vegas like 3 years ago, and I remember I got my camera and I watched Omar's video on like how to set up my particular camera,
Yeah.
and so fast forward to last July. Michelle and I go back to my hometown in Missouri for 4th of July, and Jabin is speaking at my
Mhm.
home church in Missouri.
Yeah.
So just funny, our head pastor is speaking.
Yeah.
So okay, well, we'll check out that church, and I go to check it out, and lo and behold, Omar is speaking, and I'm like looking on my phone. That guy looks so familiar.
So familiar, right?
And I'm
that
like,
his brother.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the guy that helped me like set up my camera 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was just funny. Like
He's a legend on there.
I know, right?
Yeah, because I met him before I ever like knew Think Media or anything.
Yeah.
And I just, I was at City Light and was like, hey, like I think he invited me to his group and I was like, I can't do basketball. I'm stuck at basketball. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, we got into a conversation. He's like, so what do you do? What do you do? And he was like, I work for Think Media, 2.2 million subs.
That's how he started the conversation.
Well, I was like, well, what do you do? And that's what he said.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay. I didn't know what that meant, but then I figured out, okay, is YouTube
That's
2
awesome.
million subscribers? Holy crap, like a lot. And then I started watching a lot of their stuff too. So I was wanting to get more like footage online
Yeah.
or drone content. And YouTube is really, really great. But I kind of just really started focusing on Instagram.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who kind of are in that coaching like sphere and that that industry is going to get huge over the next 10 years because college is like becoming less and less of like a necessity. It's like, man, I could have started a business, or like, I guess for me with flight school is different, but with the Instagram, it's great because like you can just directly go and like message people.
Right.
And like TikTok, you can't really do that.
No.
A lot harder.
Instagram's
YouTube, like you're talking to them.
right.
Like you're not talking like with them necessarily.
Right.
So you might build a lot of brand equity with them.
Sure.
Because they're watching your videos and stuff. But when they watch it, like you can't really reach out to them.
Yeah.
On Instagram, it's like they like it. I saw who likes it. Like they comment, anything like that. Like it's very, very like relational. So I can talk to people immediately. So I started out with like 300 people on my Instagram. And I mean, I only have 1,500 now, but I'm wanting to get to like 10,000 eventually.
Right.
But I was able to get clients like in the first month of marketing it because I could directly talk to people and say like, hey, I've been where you are. And if you want to make more money flying drones, if you want my help, I've got a program and I can help you.
Yeah.
And so it's what a lot of people in the coaching sphere are doing.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob Lewis, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Are we going to the sauna now? You guys got to get going.
Hot tub for sure.
Ooh. All right.